Hello, I am Augusto Garcia, and I was part of the Penn State team who had the honor to win the Vis Moot in 2019. Today, I'm going to talk about the 10 rules to have a great performance at the Vis Moot. So, let's get to it. Rule number 1, know your case. Once the problem drops, you have to read it almost every day. You have to get used to the facts and the characters of the story. You have to have your legal arguments, but you also need to learn about the business side of the case. You have to know everything you can about the industry in which the case is about. If you do this, then you're going to get more creative at the moment of answering the questions that the tribunal is going to ask you during the pleadings. And also, you're going to have better arguments for the written memo because it's going to have sense regarding the legal arguments, but also in the business. Rule number 2, start with your strongest argument and use a roadmap. Once you're in front of the tribunal, you have to tell them from the get-go your strongest argument and why your client should win the case. Once you have established this, then you have to guide that tribunal with your roadmap through a reasonable and logical path of why your client should also win the case. To help you doing this, you have to add connecting phrases that are going to help you get the fluency of the arguments that are going to convince that tribunal. You need a structure, and even if you are the respondent, you also need it. Why? Because in case the claimant has a not structured speech, then you're going to be able to provide to the tribunal a structured response, but also adding the points when you have to be responsive and answering the points that the claimant made. In this way, you're going to get points from that tribunal because your speech is going to be structured, but you also are going to be responsive once you are pleading. Rule number 3, before writing the memo, the team should have oral arguments. Once the problem drops, the legal research starts. In this legal research, the team is going to find a lot of sources, scholars, and cases that are going to be useful at the moment of writing the memo. But in order to have a better structure in the memo, I'll recommend that the team should have oral arguments between them with the legal research that they have found. In this way, they are going to start feeling the competition in their feet and they're going to have better structured arguments. And this competition between the team are going to help them to be able to get a better structured memo. Rule number 4, know your sources. When you cite a case in the oral pleadings or in the written memo, you have to know it by heart. You have to know the facts of the case, which court or tribunal rendered the decision, in which year, and why the case is applicable to the case at hand. If you don't do this and the tribunal asks you a question about it, then you may transform a good source into a point of doubt where the tribunal is going to doubt about your competence and your knowledge of the legal sources that you put to the table yourself. This is not only important to the oral submissions. I will argue that it's also important regarding the sources that you put in the written memo. Why? Because the other party may read your written submissions and may find a contradiction in your sources. If they do that and they brought that to the tribunal, then the tribunal may ask you a question regarding this contradiction in your sources, and you will need to provide a logical answer. That's why it is important to know every source that you put in the written memo and also in the oral submissions. In the case of scholars, you have to know the name of the scholar, the name of the book, and the year in which it was published. It is also important, if you can, have a written or a printed version of the page which you are citing because they may also ask you for the page. Rule number 5, pay attention. Just sit and pay attention while you are not talking. When your co-counsel is talking, you have to pay attention to what she's saying. What are the tribunal's concerns? What are their questions? In this way, you're going to have a good reading of the room that are going to prepare you when it's your turn. It is also important to pay attention to when your opposing counsel is arguing. If you do this, then you will identify what are the main points where you have to focus your presentation when it's your turn. Paying attention to the opposing counsel does not mean making faces while they are arguing. It can be the best argument or it can be the worst argument. Do not make faces. If you start doing that, the tribunal will notice it. If you can read the room, the tribunal can do it too. And if you make faces in this regard, then they may think that the argument that the opposing counsel is arguing is better than what it really was. Or, in the worst case scenario, that you are being disrespectful and you're going to lose points. So pay attention and read the room. Rule number 6, teamwork. In competitions like the Vis Moot, teamwork is one of the most important points. Once your co-counsel is arguing, you have to put your head down and start writing all the possible notes that you can. Once the tribunal asks her a question and she does not know the answer, you have to be prepared to give the answer to her in a fast way. That is why you have to know her pleading by heart too. In this way, the tribunal will notice that you are working as a team. You cannot talk with your co-counsel. The way you're going to communicate with her is that you're going to write a note or you're going to pass it in a discreet way. You cannot be too obvious. You have to do it in a discreet way, and that tribunal will give you points for that. Work as a team. The work team is the dream team. Rule number 7, merge the presentations. They separate the problem between a substance part and a procedural part. Also, the teams separate the team members between procedure and substance. If you are part of one area, you have to know more than the basics in the other one. This will make you more useful not only in the legal research but also in the oral submissions, because the procedural co-counsel that you're going to have, and you're going to be in this case the substance, you're going to merge the presentations and have a logical path that the tribunal is going to follow. You have to be concise and you have to be reasonable between the two arguments. In this way, if the tribunal asks you a question regarding your co-counsel's arguments, you're going to provide a logical answer, and the tribunal will notice that you are one team and that you are reasonable. In the case that your co-counsel made a mistake and the tribunal asks you a question regarding it, you may say something like, "What my co-counsel really meant was this," and this will help you to provide and continue with your case and probably win it. Rule number 8, listen to the feedback that you are given. This is one of the golden rules. We all have problems when we are arguing in front of our coaches and we think that our case is the best case ever, and they are not really following it. During the feedback, they will provide, most likely at the beginning of the preparation, bad feedback to us. And we're going to feel frustrated. Do not feel that way. It is in this way that you have to prepare. That's why it's called preparation. You have to listen to the amount of feedback that they give you, and you have to follow the advice. Work on one point at a time, and then you're going to be better and better. This is really important. Do not just hear the feedback, listen to it, work with it. Even the feedback of the coaches is not enough. You can call a friend and tell them, a friend that does not know anything about the case, to come and hear you. And in this way, they're going to provide feedback if your presentation is reasonable, but also if it's logical. And this will take you to another point. Listen to the feedback to improve yourself. Rule number 9, get in the zone. This one is special for non-native English speakers like me. This competition is in English. Then you have to start doing everything in English. You have to start looking for videos, listening to really good speakers in English, even songs, read books, everything in English. This will put your mindset, and you're going to be unconsciously competent to be able to do it well in English. This was my problem at the beginning because I really like music that is in Spanish, so this really slowed me down. Was one, I spoke to my coaches about it. They said that you have to do everything in English, and that really helped me. Once I get into the zone and do everything in English, this really boosts my level in the Vis Moot and really helps us to get into the final for the competition. Rule number 10, prepare for questions. Most likely, during the oral submissions, the tribunal is going to ask you a lot of questions. You have to be prepared for it. You cannot look frustrated when they are asking you the questions. It's true, you have your presentation and you want to submit all your issues to win the most amount of points. But if the tribunal stops you and start asking you questions, you cannot look frustrated. The best way to prepare for this is with your team. You have to discuss all the possible amounts of questions that the tribunal will ask you or may ask you in the oral submissions. In this way, you're going to be prepared with all the possible answers and be ready to deliver to them to a tribunal in a confident way. Your team should push you really far and makes you really stressed. In that way, when the tribunal asks you the questions, you're going to look calm. When a member of the tribunal opens their mouth to ask you a question, you have to stop talking. Do not do anything and just stop talking. Let them ask you the question and then you politely are going to provide an answer. That happened to me once in one of the moot courts that I did. I was so eager to finish my presentation, and when a member of the panel asked me a question, I stopped her and said, "Well, let me finish. This cannot happen to you this time." So I hope you enjoy these 10 rules, but now I'm going to provide you one of the bonus rules that for me really helped me in this Vis Moot, and I call it the pencil rule. To provide a better modulation for you before the oral submissions, you could have a pencil, put it into your mouth, and then start modulating and practicing. The tongue is a muscle, so in order to put it in workout with it, you can do with that, and you're going to be ready to be the best attorney that you can be in these oral submissions. This way, I'm telling you, you're going to do great. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if you have any rules. So, good luck.